Good morning, Coneheads. It's Conehead Kevin here, and today we're gonna ride motorcycles. Gotta go. But I'm headed over here to get a little practice session in for myself while nobody's here. Practicing on a motorcycle, especially your own motorcycle, the motorcycle you ride frequently, even the ones in your garage that you ride in frequently, practicing on that motorcycle is extremely important. These skills are diminishing. People go through the basic rider course, and after attending the basic rider course, you know, they think they got it. They're out there on the road now. Now they're out there learning the rest of it, or they think they're real great because they made it through a basic rider course. Where in the course we use only positive and reinforcement and encouragement, and try to maintain a nice calm demeanor the whole time. So you're always being reinforced about how good you are when you're accomplishing things out there, and many people make great accomplishments from not being able to use the clutch to being pretty decent with controls on the motorcycle by the end of a couple days out here. However, normally within 6 months, those skills have already diminished. And by 2 years, they're pretty much non-existent anymore. However, people still think they're real great at it because, you know, they made it through a course a couple years ago and they might have done real well in the course. So they tend to think they're pretty great at it. When they couldn't come out here and do this again, you know, without some type of assistance or help with, you know, how to do the maneuvers again, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's just that's just how people are. But training is what's gonna keep those skills sharp. And this here is what you need to be able to do with your big motorcycle. But we can do it much smaller. We don't have to go out to that dotted line. We can do it right here and do it in the same box as what the basic rider course do on little tiny motorcycles. You know, and we can look in the wrong position and do it because we know, you know, what it takes to do it. We know where to put the motorcycle, the RPMs, the control of the clutch, where our clutch feels. But this is not where you should be looking while you're doing this. You should be looking up here. You're going behind you, so look behind you. If you keep your head and eyes up while you're doing stuff like this, you can judge your speed and everything better. You know, having your head and eyes up out there is really important. It's one of the things that you probably heard if you took the basic rider course. You've heard more than anything is that keeping your head and eyes up. Stuff that you don't do in the basic rider course, though, you'll do like little 90-degree turns from a stop, and you'll do those from back here. You know, and this is literally a 20-foot run to make that turn. And so people will get up on their motorcycle and they'll make that turn like it's no problem after a while. Most of the time they're going outside the line, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and then they get used to the controls on the motorcycle and they start handling those things a little bit better. They're able to get some momentum, they're able to look where they want to go and make the turn. But these turns can actually be made much tighter. rather than start clear back here, you've got to run at 20 feet. You know, which is pretty standard. If you can do that, you're pretty fine out there. Now here's something. You should never park this close to a car. If you're behind a car, you should never ever park that close behind a car at a traffic light. But people do it, and sometimes you get crunched up in there, or sometimes you're slowing down with a car, and all of a sudden that car really hits its brakes hard, and you'd misjudged it, and now you're stuck, and you're right behind that car, and you're really close to it, and then the person in front of them breaks down, and now they're right on that person's butt, and now nobody can move. They can't back up because you're right here, and you're real close to their bumper. You can still get out of situations like that with these motorcycles. Most of the time my motorcycle's quiet, people can't hear it. It does have some sound, and no, loud pipes don't save lives. That's just a saying, just so you can have loud pipes. And I have loud pipes because I like them, not because they save lives. That would be like saying my horn saves my life, and it doesn't. Taking your finger off different controls to use that horn, that's probably what got you out of any trouble that you were in anyway. But back to this corner. So you want to make a turn. You're stuck behind a car. That car is right there. If you're in first gear, think of the clutch as what controls the speed, not the throttle. The throttle's just going to add you some stability. Now, that's not a blanket statement that's true across the board. I get it. I'm talking about a certain situation. Think about the clutch as controlling your speed, and the throttle is just giving you some stability. You can go ahead and turn your handlebars full lock, and you can even lean that motorcycle. All right, not too far, just lean it where you can handle it. If you can handle it going deeper, handle it going deeper. And give it some RPMs. Once you have those RPMs on there, you're going to add some stability when you start releasing this clutch. Now, in doing that, my foot is already off the ground. It's so much easier to turn. You can take off from a dead stop at a complete full lock turn in just 3.5 to 4 feet or less. You saw I was way away from that line. I'll get even closer to this one, you know. There's another one here. We can get even closer to it. And you can get right next to those lines, and you can do that from a dead stop without much trouble, as long as you don't take off. Now, if I were to do this same thing here and pop the clutch, then I would probably get scared, and then I would grab my front brake, and then my bike would immediately fall over. If you touch the front brake while you're doing something like this, your tire's turned, it can't go straight, and if you grab the brake, it now can't go in the direction it's pointed, and your bike will fall down. You want to go ahead and just keep your hand away from that front brake when you're doing stuff like this. Lean the motorcycle. RPMs don't matter. I'm screaming them. But it's the control of the clutch, releasing it real slow. My foot's off the ground already. And that bike will move super slow, but as long as you have power going to it, you're adding some stability, and that'll help out a lot for taking off from a stop. Now, no, I do not encourage you to just start immediately trying that. Try it at bigger distances first, and then work toward it. Just like when you're doing U-turns and you want to tighten them up. I can look in the wrong direction, and I can totally do these. Now, the reason for that is because I know how to do them. I know what the bike does. But if I keep my head up like this, man, that's so much easier. I can control the speed. I know what speed it should be going. But when I look down, I tend to rev up the RPMs a little bit more when I look down. Now, the reason I do that is because I don't want that motor to woof out. Because right now, if that motor woofed, I'd go down, you know. And now you can adjust your body in those positions. If you move your body while you're doing this, move over to the other side of the seat. Turn those shoulders, turn that head, get everything turned. And you can see I'm almost at a dead stop. Controlling this very slow. And I can just keeps, I can use less RPMs and more clutch. I can tilt the bike even more. And I can tilt it even more until it scrapes like that. Momentum is your friend while you're doing this. Normally when you're training, speed can be your enemy while you're trying to do that. People try to whip around here too fast before they learn how to control the motorcycle. But once you learn how to control it going slow, then you can work that momentum, and you can just do it like that real fast and scrape. And then you can dip in. And then you can do full flops with those handlebars. Once you learn what momentum you can do this at, I can slow down in the turn like that and still make it. Now, I'm not using front brake for that. That is just completely 100% rear brake to do that. Remember, I don't touch the front brake while I'm doing those control skills, but if I have this momentum, bam, I can even slow down and make those turns. I can add some RPM. I don't know if the camera can pick up that scraping or not. This helmet, I don't know if it's blocking it or not. And now all of that is without really changing seating position. A different seat on a motorcycle can help out a lot. Also, moving forward on the tank and putting your body upright like that can really tighten these turns up to where I'm not even leaning very much right now. I'm just turning the handlebars, but I can lean it more. I can even speed it up and lean it. Practicing those control skills, you can do that next to lines in parking lots. And just practice going slow in a straight line, working that clutch. If you got a nice loose back and not a big fat gut like I do, that turn back and forth becomes a lot easier when you're doing these. When you're turning to the left and you want to flop over to the right, you know, a lot of times I have a hard time with that full lock because I have a hard time spinning my spine back around. But spinning the other way, not too much of a trouble for me. this is some of the stuff you might have seen from our other videos where we're doing three turns in here. And that same box is designed for, you know, a basic rider course to get your endorsement, where you just got to do a figure 8 on a tiny bike. And we use these big bikes and turn them around 3 times in there. So it's like connected figure 8s. And now, yeah, we have a sea of cones out here on the outside of it. But the idea is to not look at those, don't even worry about them. You're ignoring them because what you're doing is just the turns. I'm making the turn now. I don't really care about lines or cones. Now, normally when I'm practicing front brake turning like that, where I'm using a little bit of pressure on the front brakes to make like U-turns and stuff, again, not something, do not do that on your own. Do not just start trying to practice that shit. Have somebody show you how to do it first, because there is a process to get there. You just don't go and try and practice it. You have to practice certain steps along the way, how you slow down in a straight line first, how you slow down while you begin to weave first. There are steps to just getting there. Don't just go out and say, all right, I'm going to do U-turns and I'm going to drag the front brake while I'm doing a U-turn. That front tire can stop on you with just one little mess up and the bike will tip right over. Now the problem with that, when it happens with the front brake, is that your handlebars are turned. When your handlebars are turned, your tire can't go that way. And if you grab the front brake, the tire can now not go that way either. Well, this becomes an issue. If you have, and you squeeze that front brake, it'll stop that bike so quick that the bike will fall before you can do anything about it. And when the bike falls like that, what it does is it pulls your hips first and then slaps your face on the ground. All right? So it's not really a good technique to practice on your own. You should practice it with somebody who can show you the steps to getting there, to controlling it with that front brake. And again, I don't recommend using the front brake for that type of stuff. Why do I do it? Well, it's because I want to have pretty good control of that brake for other things as well. Because one of the best cornering techniques that anybody can do is trail braking. It really is. The racers do it for a reason. These are the guys making all the money out there. They are the pros of the riders, and there's a reason that they use trail braking. And it isn't just because they go fast. They use it because it's probably the single best cornering technique to use. You gotta let your bikes cool down. You practice it, you step away, and it also helps you loosen up. Like again, right now, I just started off in the morning. I'm really tightened up. I haven't had time to loosen up, and I never stretch because I'm fat and lazy. Now let me show you some front brake turning. See that? That's not something I recommend for new riders at all. Mastering it's okay, and if you're taught it from the beginning, it's all right, but these front brake turns like this, they're great. They offer you a lot of control skill, and I'm holding the front brake and turning the motorcycle right now, all right? And while I enjoy doing that, one little extra squeeze, and it'll put the bike down really fast if you're not accustomed to it. So I don't recommend just coming off and practicing that right away. Wait until you get your other control skills down. Wait till you get control skills down, you know, using rear brake to stabilize you rather than the front brake. As you can see, I go, while I'm well within the boundaries of all the courses, I go outside the small box lines when I use the front brake technique in this until I get a few runs on it. You know, it's a lot more challenging, but it is fun to do when you want to improve your skills. You just got to be careful. I wash out my rear brake a lot because I over practice with it, and I'll come out here and I'll run the bike for too long, and I'll do it until the rear brake washes out, and you'll go and you'll press it and you'll have nothing. Bike just keeps going like you haven't even touched a brake. And you know, you have to let air cool motors cool down a little bit. You don't want to overrun them too much, especially if you're revving them up at slow speeds. And I like to rev them up for a little bit for stability. Momentum will also give you some stability in there. There's all different kinds of techniques to do that. And, you know, old Southern saying, you know, there's 100 ways to skin a cat. Well, I don't know. I've never really skinned a cat before. But I have tried several methods of making U-turns. And I just showed you a couple. You can use the front brake to slow you down. And you can control in slow speed maneuvers doing that. Not something I recommend at all. I really don't. I recommend, you know, using the rear brake if you're going to use a control brake for it. But if you can control it with the clutch only, you're in a much better position. You go to police rodeos, you know, if those guys made more than 2 runs right quick in a row, you know, the rear brake might be washed out if they didn't use other techniques as well, which is just the clutch and the throttle, you know. So you really do need to learn multiple techniques to do it, but we can show you techniques that'll help turn a big bike like this around in small areas like that with no problem whatsoever. Yeah, it doesn't really look like a 2006 Road Glide, does it? The motor does, but it doesn't have this big bubble on the front anymore. I took that off and put this system in there. There's a lot of vibration on this bike. This bike was one hell of a vibrator, you know. I put this Memphis shade on it, which is a fantastic shade, by the way. I highly, highly recommend Memphis shades. But this one does not work for me. It is the wrong height for my height. I'm 6'3", and this Memphis shade I would rather go with the shorter one and take the wind in the chest, because where this one lifts the air, it hits me right in the helmet, and I get a lot of buffet from the wind. All right. The other problem I get with this particular one on this bike is that rain will gather up when it gets super wet outside and it starts pouring real hard, and that rain will run down around here and it'll come off the sides of the windshield right there as well as over my head, but it'll come off the sides of the windshield and I take it right up the sleeves. I can have rain gear on and I'm getting soaked slowly from the sleeves up.